Hello, it's Friday, the 13th of April, 2018, the pilot episode of our film, music, books, and art. A part of our F series for the It's Just Another Ordinary Joe Show podcast. I'm totally stoked. I'm very excited to launch off this particular segment of our F-Series Ordinary Joe Show daily podcast. As film, music, books, and art, these are my favorite pastime. These are my favorite things to do when I want to sit back and relax. Like as usual, we are not going to offer expert advice, expert opinion, but we are here to be explorers and adventurers, to learn more, to seek, to progress, to grow together with our audience, to learn step by step, holding hands with our audience, to see the power behind films, behind books, behind music, and how it affects our society, how it affects our behavior, our individual taste. Going to the movies and watching our favorite Hollywood actors or local artists is one of the most influential activity of human experience. This is not a direct endorsement of Hollywood or the six big studios. Like I said, our podcast, our show is centered to the needs and the benefit of our viewers and followers and listeners. We are not pushing their agenda. This podcast is about the appreciation of films, of movies, of storytelling, of inspiring our fellow human by learning about the stories of those who have gone before us.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All three engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0. And liftoff, the final liftoff of Atlantis on the shoulders of the space shuttle. America will continue the dream.
So thank you for joining us today. And in about 3 seconds, we are going to launch off this episode, this pilot episode. So let's do it. Lights, camera, action.
Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.
So let's kick off this episode with a big bang. And let's start it off with one of the best speeches in Hollywood films.
For those of you who may not know, this is the final resting place for 6 members of the 1970 Thundering Herd. The plane crash that took their lives was so severe, so absolute, that their bodies were unable to be identified. So they were buried here, together. 6 players, 6 teammates, 6 sons of Marshall. This is our past, gentlemen. This is where we have been. This is how we got here. This is who we are today. I want to talk about our opponent this afternoon. They're bigger, faster, stronger, more experienced, and on paper, they're just better. And they know it too. But I want to tell you something that they don't know. They don't know your heart. I do. I've seen it. You have shown it to me. You have shown this coaching staff, your teammates. You have shown yourselves just exactly who you are in here. When you take that field today, You've got to lay that heart on the line, man. From the soles of your feet, with every ounce of blood you've got in your body, lay it on the line until the final whistle blows. And if you do that, we cannot lose. We may be behind on the scoreboard at the end of the game, but if you play like that, we cannot be defeated. And we came here today to remember 6 young men and 69 others who will not be on the field with you today. But they will be watching. You can bet your ass that they'll be gritting their teeth with every snap of that football. You understand me? How you play today, from this moment on, is how you will be remembered. This is your opportunity to rise from these ashes and grab glory. We are. Funeral's in today.
Matthew McConaughey in the movie We Are Marshals. What an inspiring scene. Don't go away. We'll be right back in about 60 seconds. A friendly reminder to all our followers, listeners on our audio platform, iTunes, Spreaker, and SoundCloud. It'll be a very big help in promoting our shows here if you can come and visit our Facebook page, our YouTube page, and Vimeo. And on the comment section, please interact with us and tell us what are the things that you like and what are the things you would suggest for us to improve on. At the moment, we don't have any paying sponsors and advertisers, and like what we have emphasized many times, our show is viewer and follower centric. So what we'd like to do is to serve you first, and by faith we trust that God will bring everything into the right place according to His time and according to His purpose. Having said that, you, our listeners and our followers on this show, can actually help us propel our community and our show forward. And that's by sharing, commenting, subscribing, and recommending our shows to your own social media timelines. We leave that part to you, and now we return to our regular programming. Welcome back to our fellow Ordinary Janes and Ordinary Joe listeners to this podcast. Today, Friday, we talk about music, films, books, and art. This will be our Friday podcast segment. So if this is your thing, please come and subscribe on our iTunes, Spreaker, and SoundCloud, and invite your friends to come over and listen to our show as well. Now, we don't want this show to be one microphone, one man spewing out his own opinion out there. We want this to be interactive. So please come to our Facebook, YouTube, and Vimeo platforms as well. And on the bottom of every video, you're able to place any comments. Give us comments because we are open to your thoughts, and we would like this to be an interaction so that we can explore and trek on this adventure together. So why is film important in our society? I imagine that not only it's not only me who really enjoys films, and especially films that, so for me personally, my favorite are films that talk about inspirational people, films that tackle historical events, epic events. These are my favorite type of films. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you fellow ordinary people like me is very accepting of the lifestyle of going to the movies. This is the most affordable type of entertainment that people can engage in outside of our television and Netflix and YouTube entertainment platforms. when we're at home or when we are on our mobile. But films, going to the movies, this could be a very good thing and also can be a very bad thing. Depends on how you engage with it. Going to the movies can be a family event. Going to the movies can be a community event as well. I remember growing up as a teenager, I go to the movies with fellow youth group from church, youth group fellows. And even there are times when we went as a whole, even with our pastors, to go and see an inspirational movie. It doesn't have to be a Christian movie. Something inspirational and something that we can share together and fellowship with. So usually we'll go to the movies and then go and have some sort of dinner or a meal together and just have conversations about the movie afterwards. So words are not enough, and I cannot emphasize enough the importance of talking about the industry of film and the cultural part of enjoying film as a society. If you think you are interested in films, if you think you are interested in good movies, a lot of men like myself, probably young men, will be very interested in action movies, superhero movies, and the movies nowadays, when you go to the cinema with the 3D effect and the 3D sound effect, it feels like you're taken to a different place in time and in another planet. And movies are so believable. So if you think, as a young person, as a millennial, you love movies so much, let me tell you that it's not only you who loves movies. You know who else loves movies? Economists, politicians, engineers, particularly social engineers, policymakers, and people of influence. There is so much money to make in the industry of filmmaking. There is so much influence that film has on our society, and you can actually bend or direct the way a population thinks, believes, behaves, and just the choices in life can be influenced because of our movie industry. So if you're a young parent with young little kids in kindergarten, grade school, or even high school, we really need to have a serious conversation. How are we going to protect our kids from being influenced by social engineers and policymakers who, little to many people's knowledge, policymakers, social engineers, bankers, economists, sociologists, their finger is on the movie industry, left, right, and center. Hollywood is penetrated by all these influencers for many various reasons. It could be political, it could be trying to push a product, it could be trying to bend a belief so that we stop using one product over the other. I can see that the break time is about to come in the corner, but on the other side of this break, we are going to talk about formatting and also an opening for a co-host. If you're a film buff, if you live in Toronto, if you're a book connoisseur, okay, we're going to run out of time. The music's starting to come on, but on the other side of this show, let's talk about this. Don't go away. We'll be back in about 60 seconds from this point. Thank you very much for sticking with us. A friendly reminder to all our followers on audio podcasts on iTunes, Spreaker, and SoundCloud. It'll be a really big help for the furthering of our show and to sustain our show. If you can come yourself and invite friends to come and visit our Facebook page, Ordinary Joe Show on Facebook, and on our YouTube channel, Ordinary Joe Show on YouTube and Vimeo as well. And come and subscribe and share a video version of this podcast to your timeline, therefore helping us to get more exposure and increase our community together. We will greatly appreciate that, and our other community fellow members here will appreciate that as well. And now,
let's go back to our regular programming.
Welcome back. Thank you for sticking with us. I was just talking about before, on the other side of this break, before we got onto our break, I was saying about an opening for guest co-hosting. I'm calling out all film bloggers, film buffs out there. Not only film, like I said earlier, we tackle on Fridays books, music, and art as well. If you're an artsy person, if you are a connoisseur of artistic work, photography, paintings, sculpting, whatever art form you are interested in, I like to have a rotation of guest co-hosts who can, balance out the view with me, and someone who can agree with me, disagree with me, go in the same direction, go in opposite directions, so that our listener will have a variety of point of view on this show. As long as you are not someone who there's only very basic guidelines. We don't swear on air. We want to be family friendly. We don't want to be rude. Things that are not acceptable in society will not be acceptable on the platform of our show. But that's about it. Any opposing thoughts, agreeing thoughts are all welcome. So, like I said, if you're a film buff, if you're a blogger, a vlogger, a podcaster as well, if you love this sort of thing, please come and be a regular co-host with me, a guest co-host that we can rotate between films. Some of you who are interested in music, especially independent music. There's a bustling community of independent artists in Toronto. Help me seek them out and interview them as well on the show. I really want to promote a lot of indie artists. This is what the Ordinary Joe Show is all about. We are not pushing and promoting only those who are in the big label artists from those big labels, but we want to level the playing field and give an opportunity for all independent artists, musicians, songwriters, filmmakers, film actors, independent screenwriters, and all that. We want to give you a platform here on the Ordinary Joe Show, and we can collaborate with each other by promoting each other and creating this community of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Shifting gears a little bit, I'd like to apologize to all our audience who are expecting our uploads, our broadcast to be as we have stated that we want it to come out on a regular basis every day from 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, and 9 a.m. Pacific. This is the goal, and I really appreciate if you can be very forgiving nowadays. But as you know, this is just a one-man production at this point. Don't have any audio engineers. I don't have any writers, researchers, none of that. I do all of that by myself, and that's what a pioneer needs to do to get something started, to get something established. But I totally believe in faith that when things are running smoothly and everything is falling in place, that and I experienced it many times in the past where people will come to our rescue to come and help us out and help us continue and create content that are valuable for our listeners. So right now the volunteering on the Ordinary Joe Show is open for anybody who's interested. And so recently I've been creating a lot of templates to help me I'm creating everything from scratch, and so templates will be a very helpful time saver, because you have to know that this is not my full-time job at the moment. I would like it to be my full-time occupation, but it's not the reality yet. So I want to be able to produce a week or 2 week show in a matter of 3-4 days, and schedule for distribution. But some are time-sensitive materials, so I still have, even though I pre-produce some of the contents ahead of time and schedule it out, there are things that I still have to produce on the day off, because some of the segments, some of the components will be time sensitive for that particular day. So that's why you will hear that I don't touch so much on weather and current news, because those can expire very, very quickly. But okay, let's go back to formatting of this particular episode on Fridays. There's some space for reviewing films, current films, but I'd like to tell you that this show will not be designed to just talk about current films. We want to talk about classical films. We want to talk, when I say classical, it doesn't mean, black and white classical films only. I'm talking about last year's films. Because there's so much good films that are on the archives already, and we need to not ignore them. Now, I think the break time music is coming on again. On the other side of this break, we will talk more about the formatting. Please don't go away. We'll be back in about 60 seconds.
A friendly reminder to all our followers, viewers, and listeners. Tomorrow we wind down this pilot week with the pilot episode of F7, Faith, Family, and Kids. And on Sunday, we will also have the very first pilot episode of Flights and Destinations, but that will be for all the pilot episodes by Monday. We will kick off our regular programming, our regular format, which starts with the relevant news on the topic. And looking forward to an exciting week 2 next week. Please invite your friends. Please invite your family. This is a family-friendly podcasting. And this is also a community-friendly podcasting. So we expect and we encourage, we invite your interaction with us.
Thank you for sticking around. Now, let's go back to our regular programming. Hello and welcome back. And thank you for sticking with us. What can we expect on week 2 of films, music, books, and art podcasting Fridays? We can expect that we will start off like every other episodes that we piloted this week. We will start off with the relevant news. So for this particular Friday podcast, we will start with indie film news, events that are involved in independent films in the city. As you all know, probably the biggest event in Toronto every year is the Toronto International Film Festival, but that will be down in September, so we have a lot of time to build up momentum and buzz towards that. But that's not the only film event that happens in the city. There's also other smaller and not so small film events, like the film documentary event that is also sort of under the wings of the Toronto International Film Festival. It's happening this summer. So Doc Zone is happening this summer, and there are tiny little film festivals as well. One of the film festival that is grassroots that I know of was actually pioneered by a friend of mine, Yao Tong Chia, when he used to come to University of Toronto here many years back, maybe about 5 years ago, when he used to take his PhD at the University of Toronto. He pioneered the Singapore-Toronto Film Festival, that I think even after he left the city and go back to be a professor in Australia and in Singapore, the film festival had a life on its own, has a life on its own, and continues on to happen every year. So I'm going to reach out to my friend Yao Tong Chia. Hopefully he's listening to this podcast as well, and I will ask him to help me get me introduced to the leaders of the Toronto Singapore Film Festival that happens every year at Innis College in University of Toronto. It wouldn't be possible for us to touch on all the film festivals because, like I said, this is just one of the segments. Film, music, books, and art is only one of the segments that we have on our Friday show. But there's so many other festivals that we have to cover for our other shows, for our Wednesday shows on food and festivals. We are going to be very busy with that as well, so we will not be able to cover all of the film festivals. However, every week on Fridays we will try and do a review alternately with upcoming films,
films that are already in existence, and it will be not based on what's upcoming, or it will be more based on genre. We will go reviewing films genre by genre, and also we will go reviewing films based on different lenses. So one of the lenses will be as from a filmmaker's lens, so the technicalities and reviewing current or existing films based on their filmography, the storytelling, the sound scoring and all that, the scripting. We will look at it from that lens, but one of a very important aspect of reviewing films for me is also through the lens of a parent, because our kids are exposed to a lot of films, both so-called kids movies, and primarily that would be Disney movies, which a lot of them I have very, very strong questions about. And with films, we will also cover some of the television shows that are streaming online and also cable TV. I'll be very honest though, full disclosure, I don't have any more cable TV. I disconnected my cable since maybe 5 years already, because I could actually get everything I need through streaming, through the internet, and not able to spend a lot of time to be waiting through commercials, watching live TV. So I can only, there's on Netflix, there's also television section where you can watch, albeit it's not current, former episodes of TV series. And with that, I don't have to spend any time wasting on commercials, on TV commercials, TV ads. So I can go through, and that's one of the inspiration on the Ordinary Joe show. We might have break times here, but that's because we want to engage our community and not only be one way. I don't want this show to be one way, I talk, you listen type of podcast. We have break times here because, yes, eventually we want to have advertisers and sponsors who will help us fund this show, but more so because we want to engage with our viewers and our listeners. Here we come again at the end of this segment. On the other side of this break, I'll tell you more what to expect on our Friday episodes of films, music, books, and art. Don't go away, we will continue this topic on the other side of this break in about 60 seconds from now. Thank you very much for sticking with us. A friendly reminder to all our followers on audio podcasts on iTunes, Spreaker, and SoundCloud. It'll be a really big help for the furthering of our show and to sustain our show. If you can come yourself and invite friends to come and visit our Facebook page, Ordinary Joe Show on Facebook, and on our YouTube channel, Ordinary Joe Show on YouTube and Vimeo as well. And come and subscribe and share a video version of this podcast to your timeline, therefore helping us to get more exposure and increase our community together. We will greatly appreciate that, and our other community fellow members here will appreciate that as well. And now we return to our Friday podcast about films, music, books, and art. Welcome back. This is the last segment for our pilot episode of films, music, books, and art. We talked a lot about the films, but we haven't talked about the other ones, the music, books, and art. Monthly, there is a book event at the Metropolitan Toronto Reference Library called the A-List. So a lot of Canadian book authors usually are given platform on stage to talk about their book at the Metro Toronto Reference Library. We will try and do an affiliation with that event so we can review some of the Canadian authors that are upcoming. Also, here at the show, we already interviewed one book author, the author of Blurry Daydreams, which is a Christian book. And we're about to expect in one of our upcoming episodes a children's book author as well, who's now circulating in all of the children's section on the Toronto Public Library system. He will be sitting down with us to talk about the art of writing books for kids and also the business side of authoring books for kids. Also, on a regular occasion, there are book signings that's happening all across this city in Indigo bookstores and Chapters bookstores. I think they might have already merged together, those two brands. But that's kind of unfortunate because if all these big brands are merging together, then we are ending up with a monopoly. On top of printed books, there are also so many books that many authors, independent authors, that write books for the Kindle ebook platform. Also, there are book authors who write for the Apple Books, iBooks platform. We are also going to include them in our series of guests to interview and to talk to. So there's many things that we can do in regards to the book section of this Friday podcast. But remember, we also want to touch on music and art. When it comes to music, we know a lot of people who are independent artists all across this city. There's so many of them. Bands, brass bands, solo artists. Many solo artists, singer-songwriters have emerged because equipment and the technology and softwares that are available for many music artists to create their own music with their computer has been a possibility nowadays. So if you go to SoundCloud, if you go to iTunes, or even Spotify, you will hear a lot of independent artists that are creating their own beautiful songs. And we would like to give them a platform here as well at the Ordinary Joe Show, because the big labels, the artists from big labels, they are very spoiled. They get all the exposure on mainstream radio, mainstream media, and we need to level the playing field. Because if you take one of those independent artists, take their music and listen to it side by side with all the big label artists, I can tell you right now that the independent artist creates richer and more meaningful content as opposed to those mass-produced, multi-million-dollar corporate big labels. And that is because the independent artists always give her all of her heart, all of her soul into her own brand, right? So she's not working for the big labels who takes a big cut and sometimes meddle with her own artistry and creativity. As a matter of fact, it is the same kind of game that is played in the publishing world. I had the opportunity to talk to a couple of book authors, and the first thing they usually want to talk about when their book get published is how much the publisher have chopped off from their original writings, from their manuscript. That's because, publishers are all about profit. Many of them anyways. We cannot blanket judge all of them, but for the most part, if you are a book author, if you want to write a book, if you're this will be your very first book, and you think that the step to go is to work with a publisher, the first thing you can expect is that they will probably chop half off of your original manuscript, basically to make it fit to what the market demands. So it's much about marketing than being authentic to your product, to your work of art, or to your original thought. Publishers use analytics and some sort of studies on how to sell books and what type of things, what kind of books sells, what kind of topic sells, how to word your book in such a way that it sells, and how to put the right kind of cover on your book, package it in such a way that it sells. Now, it might not be exactly how you want to package your book according to your thoughts and your original core principle that you want your book to be about, but that's the game the publisher world plays. We are quickly running out of time here on the last segment of our pilot episode, but we haven't touched on graphic arts. It's a little difficult when you are on radio or on a podcast and talk about graphic art and featuring it, but hang in there, because as we progress and become more stable and established on our podcasting, daily podcast shows here on the Ordinary Joe Show, we will eventually incorporate video as well. So with that, we can feature all of our friends who are graphic artists or painters or whatnot, illustrators, in our show as a feature as well when we get to that point. But for now, we just want to tell you that there's room for you here on the show, on the Friday shows. It might have to be descriptive in the beginning, but as we move forward, we will definitely put video on our daily podcast. Thank you very much for sticking out with me and putting up with my rambling. Hopefully it's not nonsense rambling for you, because today is an introduction for our daily podcast. But starting next week, we can expect moving forward from episode 2 onwards, we will start with relevant news on the topic. So for this Friday show, we will start with films, books, music, and art news that are relevant to here and now, and here on our beloved city, the city of Toronto, what's happening in that space. We will bring you timely and relevant news about that. And hope to see you again next week, next Friday, on another podcast episode on films, music, books, and art. And please check out our other podcasts on other days. And I know that you are not homogeneous when it comes to your taste, so you might also like our other podcasts and on our other days. So please check it out. And thank you again for being part of our community. Please go to our iTunes, Spreaker, SoundCloud, audio platforms, and check out our video platforms on Facebook page, YouTube, and Vimeo. And please share our content to your friends, like our content, subscribe to our content, and please comment as well, so that we can be a community building this together in a collaborative way. God bless you all, and see you again next week on another episode of Films, Music, Books, and Art, here on the Friday episode of It's Just Another Ordinary Joe Show podcast version.